Old King Cole was a merry old soul, and a merry old soul was he. He called for his pipe and he called for his bowl and he called for his fiddlers three. Old King Cole was not always a king, nor was he born a member of any royal family. It was only chance, hard luck, he used to call it, that made him a king at all. He had always been a poor man, being the son of an apple peddler, who died and left him nothing but a donkey and a fiddle. But that was enough for Cole, who never bothered his head about the world's goods, but took things as they came and refused to worry about anything. So, when the house he lived in, and the furniture, and even the apple cart were sold to pay his father's debts, and he found himself left with the old fiddle that nobody wanted and the old donkey that no one would have, it being both vicious and unruly, he uttered no word of complaint. He simply straddled the donkey and took the fiddle under his arm and rode out into the world to seek his fortune. When he came to a village he played a merry tune upon the fiddle and sang a merry song with it, and the people gave him food most willingly. There was no trouble about a place to sleep, for if he was denied a bed he lay down with the donkey in a barn, or even on the village green, and making a pillow of the donkey's neck he slept as soundly as anyone could in a bed of down. And so he continued riding along and playing upon his fiddle for many years, until his head grew bald and his face was wrinkled and his bushy eyebrows became as white as snow. But his eyes never lost their merry twinkle, and he was just as fat and hearty as in his younger days, while, if you heard him singing his songs and scraping upon the old fiddle, you would know at once his heart was as young as ever. He never guided the donkey, but let the beast go where it would, and so it happened that at last they came to Watland, and entered one day the city where resided the king of that great country. Now, even as Cole rode in upon his donkey the king of Watland lay dying in his palace, surrounded by all the luxury of the court. And as he left no heir, and was the last of the royal line, the councillors and wise men of Watland were in a great quandary as to who should succeed him. But finally they bethought themselves of the laws of the land, and upon looking up the records they found in an old book a law that provided for just such a case as this. If the king dies, so read the law, and there be no one to succeed to the throne, the prime minister shall be blinded and led from the palace into the main street of the city. And he shall stretch out his arms and walk about, and the first person he touches shall be crowned as king of the land.
The councillors were greatly pleased when they found this law, for it enabled them to solve the problem that confronted them. So when the king had breathed his last they blindfolded the prime minister and led him forth from the palace, and he began walking about with outstretched arms seeking someone to touch. Of course the people knew nothing of this law, nor even that the old king was dead, and seeing the prime minister groping about blindfolded they kept out of his way, fearing they might be punished if he stumbled against them. But Cole was then riding along on the donkey and did not even know it was the prime minister who was feeling about in such a funny way. So he began to laugh, and the minister, who had by this time grown tired of the game, heard the laugh and came toward the stranger and touched him, and immediately all the wise men and the councillors fell down before him and hailed him as king of Watland. Thus did the wandering fiddler become King Cole, and you may be sure he laughed more merrily than ever when they explained to him his good fortune. They carried him within the palace and dressed him in purple and fine linen, and placed a crown of gold upon his bald head and a jeweled scepter in his wrinkled hand, and all this amused old King Cole very much. When he had been led to the great throne room and placed upon the throne of gold where the silken cushions felt very soft and pleasant after his long ride upon the donkey's sharp back, the courtiers all knelt before him and asked what commands he wished to give, since everyone in the kingdom must now obey his slightest word.
"Oh well," said the new king, "I think the first thing I would like is my old pipe. You'll find it in the pocket of the ragged coat I took off." One of the officers of the court at once ran for the pipe, and when it was brought King Cole filled it with tobacco from his greasy pouch and lighted it, and you can imagine what a queer sight it was to see the fat king sitting upon the rich throne, dressed in silk and satins and a golden crown, and smoking at the same time an old black pipe. The counselors looked at each other in dismay, and the ladies of the court sneezed and coughed and seemed greatly shocked, and all this pleased old King Cole so much that he lay back in his throne and roared with laughter. Then the Prime Minister came forward very gravely, and bowing low he said, "May it please your Majesty, it is not the custom of kings to smoke a pipe while seated upon the throne." "But it is my custom," answered Cole. "It is impolite," and unkingly ventured the minister. "Now, see here, old fellow," replied his Majesty, "I didn't ask to be king of this country, it's all your own doing. All my life I have smoked whenever I wished, and if I can't do as I please here, why, I won't be king, so there. But you must be the king, your Majesty, whether you want or not. The law says so." "If that's the case," returned the king, "I can do as I please in other things. So you just run and get me a bowl of punch, there's a good fellow."